Lift your eyes from the place that you are. What we're being called to have is vision, is a vision for our life that causes us to reach and sets our heights and our intention to become more than we're currently experiencing. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not satisfied or that there's a state of lack in where we are right now. What it means is that to live is to grow, and to grow is to change. And as long as you're living, you're meant to evolve more and more and more of your potentials. Does that make sense? Yes. The first thing we need to know about a vision is that it really needs to be big. That if the vision is not big enough, if the vision is not so big that it requires you to change, then it's not big enough. You need a vision of your life that right now you don't know how you could get there because you're not the person that will be there. The vision needs to be so big it requires you to change. Another important character in the Old Testament is Joseph. The word Joseph means to grow or to add, to be increased. Joseph represents that part of us that is always increasing us, that more of God may be experienced through us. Joseph said 5 words that changed his life, or there were 5 words said about Joseph, and it was, and Joseph dreamed a dream. And Joseph dreamed a dream. So here was this little farm boy, youngest one of his father. He was spoiled rotten. He was daddy's little princess boy. All the other children hated him because he was such a little, daddy's little boy. Spoiled little thing. You can just see him. His daddy made him a coat of many colors. He just ran around in that little coat. Joseph dreamed a dream, and Joseph said, I'm going to be a leader. Now, if they would have killed people that they thought could be leaders, he would have been completely safe. There was nothing about Joseph that looked like a leader. He was a scrawny, little, spoiled, rotten farm boy. But something inside of him said, I dreamed a dream, and I'm going to be a leader. Well, the next 13 years of his life were literal hell. His brothers threw him in a hole. Some people found him and sold him, and he wound up somewhere else, and people told lies about him, and he wound up in prison. Now just take a breath. Anybody else have 13 years like that? Some of us carpet our experiences. We just make it our, we live in places that are horrible. Well, for the next 13 years, life prepared him to be a leader, and guess what? He became a great leader of a great nation who was divinely guided, but it all started because he had a dream. So I ask you, are you willing to have a vision that will absolutely require you to change? And if you are, then go the next step. The next step is to remember that you're never too young or too old. But once we have that vision and we're willing to write it down, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of Unity, had a vision about unity. They had a dedication and a covenant. They literally wrote out a covenant between them and the God of their being. It wasn't discovered until after their death. But they wrote in their covenant that they would give everything they were to this thing called unity. Now, they did that at a time before unity was anything, but look what it is today. Have a vision. Let that vision be big. Be willing to write the vision. We just cannot dream it into being. Henry David Thoreau said, in the long run, men only hit what they aim for. We only hit what we aim for. You're never too young or young on your spiritual journey to have a vision and to change lives. Jim, would you give me the first slide? This is Amanda and Libby. Amanda and Libby live in Columbia, Missouri. They enjoyed volunteering at their local animal shelter. They were good friends. They're 7th graders. Amanda and Libby were over at each other's house one day. The moms were picking them up, and they overheard their moms talking about the animal shelter was really in dire need because they needed repairs, they needed funds, and they needed money. And so these two 7th graders thought, well, if our animal shelter needs money, we can do something. So they looked online and started searching for things that they could possibly do, and they happened to find a nationwide contest that was being sponsored by a company called Zoo2. Let me make sure I get that name right. Yeah, Zoo2.com. It was a nationwide contest for $1 million animal shelter makeover. And come to find out, every animal shelter had the capacity to be a part of it. So Amanda and Libby looked up their Columbia animal shelter, and it was number 859 on the list. And the contest started 8 months ago. There were only 3 months left, and they were 859. Well, the beauty of being a 7th grader is you don't know what can't be done. They said, this is the answer to our prayer. We can win $1 million. So they went and told their mothers, and their mothers said, oh, that's nice, but honey, this has been going on for years, but it's a great idea. Maybe next year. The girls said, they don't know what we're talking about. They hadn't got it yet. So they got online, and they started creating traffic to the website for the Columbia, Missouri Animal Shelter. They started telling their friends. They set a goal, a vision, and they focused on it. Well, they started in mid-January. By the first week in February, they had gone from 859 to number 55. By the time they got to number 55, they had enough people in the community. The community was actually catching on. Newspapers, they both go to a Catholic school. They got their school involved. They finally had enough people say, okay, let's just do this so these children will be quiet. The director of the animal shelter said, by the end of February, they had the community involved, and the vision seemed to then take a life of its own. But now, do you understand that this vision could not have taken a life of its own until somebody picked up and held that vision? These 2 7th graders did that, and they won the competition. She said the persistence of 2 7th graders taught everyone a lesson in commitment and vision, and it's paying off in a million different ways. Give them a hand. Next slide, Jim. This is Pierre Omidyar. Pierre grew up in France. He's the son of Iranian immigrants. He always had a vision, probably kind of like you, Rafe. He connected with people. He does connect with all sorts of people, and believed that people had far more in common than their differences, and that they should be able to connect with one another. He was also a computer geek. I don't think you're a computer geek, but he kind of was. He had a vision. He had a passion for connecting people, and he had a passion for computer technology. And so his goal was, he wanted to create a sideline hobby that would make him enough money that it would begin to eventually become a source of income for him. That was his goal. And so he took one whole Labor Day weekend and started working on a program, and he actually launched it on Labor Day 1995. Anyone know the name of the company? eBay. He launched eBay. Today, it connects people in over 30 countries. He employs over 15,000 people, and he has revenues of over $7.7 billion. I'd say he accomplished his vision. But here's the thing. He is now one of the wealthiest men. He's like number 145 in the world. He's one of the biggest philanthropists in the world. His passion is connecting people and giving people resources and tools to really grow themselves into a better quality of life. It started with a vision, but he took action to take that vision to its next step. George Bernard Shaw said, "Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I have got a hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." The writer Paul to the church in Corinthians said, "To each of you is given a manifestation of spirit. It's your what you are.